going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the altcoin market. In particular, how to find data that seem to have impacted price performance in 2021. By now, you should know there was not a big dramatic move in the entire altcoin market in 2021. It was actually a vastly different market from what we had in 2017. If you would have accumulated the cryptocurrency market back in 2015 and 16 and bought the top 10 by market cap digital assets in the cryptocurrency market, by the time the first alt season was completed here in June of 2017, you would have 70x'd your portfolio just in that amount of time. However, if you performed the same actions here in 2019 and 20, during the 2020 and 2021 bull run, you would have 12x'd your portfolio in the entire thing. Those are two vastly different markets from 2021 to 2017. Not only that, but in 2017, 9 out of the top 10 altcoins went on super mega massive runs, giving you that 70x return. However, in 2021, it was only 2 out of 10. Out of the top 10, it was really only Ethereum and Binance. We all see the new all-time highs for Bitcoin, but even accumulating right here, still, that's a 6x. Not only are these two figures vastly different from each other, but it doesn't even account for the second alt season that took place in 2017. 9 out of 10, 2 out of 10, massively different figures. I've dedicated a lot of 2023 to try to solve that puzzle on what was it about those that were determined to be winners and determined to be losers. And if they had anything in common with each other. I've been writing newsletters over here, going through percentage drawdowns, talking about developer data. I have videos over here on bcbacker.com where multiple videos in here discuss this dynamic of how it was only 1 out of every 5 or 2 out of every 10. And was there anything that could have been done to improve those odds? One of the things we've talked about has been developer data and looking at total developer growth and the number of full-time developers. I run through a simulation in here and remove coins if they had developer decline, which did end up netting a better result than that 12x. But also in these newsletters, I've talked about other things like what about total development activity rather than just focusing actually on the number of developers. And in here, I've also done case studies to show a portfolio consisting of the top 20 coins by their development activity versus a portfolio of the top 20 coins by market cap, which we're used to coming over here to CoinMarketCap, seeing what are the top 20 coins. There was also a massive difference in the results of the top 20 by development activity and the top 20 by market cap. So in this video, we're going to check out Santiment because in the case studies that I've done, by focusing on development activity, it took the odds from 1 out of 5 to 3 out of 5. And by focusing on the high development coins, it doubled what the return was rather than having focused here on what the ones were by market cap. So today, I'm going to speak with Brian from Santiment. Now, this video is not sponsored. I do not have affiliate links to Santiment. But my year has really been dedicated to trying to solve the dilemma of why these were so different and was there something that could have been done to improve those odds considering it was only 2 out of 10 versus 9 out of 10. So today we're going to bring on Brian from Santiment. I'm going to conduct a completely informal interview because I have no experience in conducting interviews. And we're going to walk through this so you can see this data and access it yourself at any time. Some of the stuff is free. Some of it does cost money. Again, I don't get anything if you sign up for this thing. But for the free information and to see which coins are ranked by the top by development activity, you could do that by going to santiment.net, clicking on Get Started, and then on the top left of the screen, you'll see something called Screener. You click right there. It's going to pull up this list, hit Dev Act 30D, that stands for Development Activity for the last 30 days. And now we've sorted all of the coins based on the most development activity happening on chain. Which ones have builders working on them, sorted in order. Again, you can access this yourself at any time by going to santiment.net, clicking on Get Started, and then clicking on the screener. It's totally free. They have other stuff in here that Brian's going to go into that is also helpful. So I'm going to bring Brian on so he can explain this to us, teach us how to read this, what these metrics mean, what's good, what's bad, and then he'll briefly touch on a couple other things that they offer here at Santiment. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, today I am joined by Brian over at Santiment. You guys have heard me talk a lot about developer data. And unfortunately was able to get Brian to come onto the channel and go through and explain some of this data, how we can access it for free, or if you want more details, I got plans and stuff like that too. But Brian is going to show us Santiment. He's going to show us developer data, show us some other things they have on the site that I found to be insanely helpful when it came to analyzing better performers in 2021. And so I just want to give this to you guys. Brian, thank you for coming on the channel. I appreciate it, brother.
You bet, my friend. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to dive into some of the metrics that Santiment has, as well as kind of look at it from the perspective of what market conditions look like right now.
All right, man. I appreciate it. And again, like you guys are not sponsoring this video. I'm not compensated to do this. I'm just really excited for you to share it because I have a plan over there at Santiment. I pay for it myself. I found it very valuable, and I'd rather have you explain this stuff than me. So thank you for coming, man. You know, one of the topics I'm always talking about on my channel is development activity. So like what I did is I went through, like, you guys are obviously there on Twitter. But I went back searching through old tweets over there on Twitter and found like lots of tweets that were put out of things that like were the top development activity coins from back in 2020, and tried to do like an analysis on how those coins performed versus the top 20 by market cap. Because as we all know, you can go shopping for coins looking through the top 20 by market cap.
Yep.
And like I was like, all right, I'm gonna run a simulation here. I'm gonna do a case study on these, and I'm gonna say, what was it like about these top 20 coins? How did they perform versus the top 20 by market cap? And the reality was that the top 20 by development activity kind of blew out of the water what the top 20 did by market cap. And so, you know, one of the places I've been coming to has been to Santiment, and I know you guys have that data. You even have that. You have that publicly available for free for people. And I was hoping that we could at least kick this thing off, man. If you could like show us some development activity stuff, and if you could just kind of walk us through what that means, how people could access it, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would love to. And you're absolutely right. There is definitely a correlation between the top projects in crypto that are working the hardest and developing the most behind the scenes and where they end up in terms of their rankings among the thousands and thousands of crypto assets out there. I scrolled down as you were talking to our top developed asset list that we have here on our screener. And there's the usual suspects. If you follow us on Twitter or see the development activity list referenced, you'll see a lot of the usual assets like Polkadot and Kusama, which share a repository, by the way, in case you didn't know that. And then we have Cardano, Hedera, and Cosmos have always kind of hovered around the top 10, and they're in the fourth and fifth position. Status, which is a bit lesser known as the 181st largest market cap asset, here in sixth. You got Chainlink, a very popular asset on social media. Lots of people that are talking about it all the time. Internet Computer, Avalanche, Aptos, and Ethereum round out around the top 11. And we can even, give you guys a quick glimpse at the top 20 or so. And even 21, it's you guys are likely familiar with Solana as the seventh largest asset. But one thing that is pretty notable is most of these assets are top 30, top 50 or so, a few exceptions. But, even assets like Kusama and Status being top 200 market cap assets, that's no fluke either. I mean, given enough time for a lot of these projects to really work on their platforms and improve their tech, innovate, find ways to keep up with what the current demand is for crypto tech, it makes a big difference when it comes to, eventually seeing the cream rise to the top, if you will.
Let me ask you this. This shows how great of an interviewer I am, because I've come with no pre-planned questions. I just wanted us to have a free-flowing conversation. I want to ask you more about that development activity, but let's just summarize it first. What is Santiment? What does Santiment do?
Yeah, so we are an on-chain data platform. We have over 2,600 assets that we cover, and we look at anything from token circulation to development activity to social volume, which is basically the frequency of how often an asset is being talked about. And we run under the mindset that tokens absolutely rise and fall based on how much utility they have, as well as what the positive versus negative sentiment is toward that asset at any given moment. It's kind of the opposite of what you initially expect if you're getting into crypto. You think that the assets being talked about the most and are circulating through social media are the ones that are rising the most. But it's actually the opposite. You'll see them being talked about a lot after a big price pump, of course, but that actually is usually when a top happens. And on the other side of the spectrum, if everyone is quite negative toward an asset and believe it doesn't have a future, those are often the ones that are bottoming out and are about to see a big rise. So our entire platform is all about giving data based on, of course, objective on-chain activity, as well as what the sentiment is so that you can counter trade it effectively.
And you've shown me charts, and I don't know if we'll have time to get to those today, but it is pretty interesting to watch how when sentiment is in the gutter, how that really usually marks a
Right.
bottom, and then when it's super crazy, and you have it all in like a quantifiable measure, which is cool because a lot of times on my channel, I'm just kind of explaining, whenever I'm getting a ton of comments calling me a dingus, that's when I know the bottom's in, but it's more measurable in there, which is interesting. Which I haven't had enough time to really dive into it, but when we had a chat earlier, you really showed it to me. That was pretty cool. All right, so essentially, you're measuring, you're checking on-chain information, and then at the same time, you're measuring social feeds, right?
Exactly.
So looking at the dev activity, I have two different questions. One, what does a dev activity score mean? How is that derived? And two, why do you think that matters so much?
There's an article that we put up about 5 years ago when we first introduced this metric. And what we do is we measure the overall amount of GitHub activity while subtracting the redundant stuff. So, for example, like a project may include any automated Slack update as a GitHub submission, which is, of course, unnecessary to the indication that a project is actually working to improve or innovate. But if they are, releasing a new fork or a merge or have some sort of halving or that they are publicly releasing and preparing for, or they're just integrating new technology onto their project, that can make a massive difference in the viability and interest level of traders that can eventually lead to higher utility. So what we really do is we look at the amount of rising development activity over time. Most of the projects that are like top 50 or so, if you go back 5 years, they're rising in their daily frequency of development activity. And if nothing else, when you see high activity, it indicates that at the very least the team behind it believes that the project will be successful. The project is very likely shipping more features, and most importantly, it's a justifier that the project is not an exit scam and actually is working toward being part of the crypto sphere for the indefinite future.
And that's the hard part because we have thousands of tokens, right? And a lot
Oh,
of it
yeah.
is just that. One of the things that we watched during 2018 through 2021 is that back in 2018, 2019, 2020, EOS was really one of the top coins, right? It was like, most developers on it, top three, most development activity, most volume transferred on it. It was literally up there. It was your Cardano. It was your Cosmos. It was your
Yep.
Chainlink. I mean, it was up there back then, right? And then one of the things that eventually ended up happening was you watched developer abandonment, and then you watched developer activity really fall off, and then it became an underperformer. Whereas, things that really continued to keep that development activity going had a better shot at doing well. And when I say that, like nothing has a 100% hit rate. And I'll preface that by saying, looking at the development activity, looking at this list, this doesn't give you a 100% hit rate list. The reality of the math behind it all is if you go through the top 100 back in 2018 and 2019, go through the top 100, only 20% of those coins ended up doing anything when it came to 2021, anything meaningful, especially in the top 30. But I've gone through and simulated, the 20 coins that were listed in the top dev activity from that time back in 2020, and of those, 55% did. So you had a very statistical difference, and that's an
Yep.
improvement, and that's important. And I think it's hard for everybody to accept. It's hard. It's like dang near impossible to get a 100% hit rate. But what can you do to do better than what the market average is? The market average is 20% in 2021, and if you went shopping in the top 30, good luck. You had a 20% hit rate. This bumped it up to 55% hit rate, and that's better than any other thing I've seen out there. And so that's why I'm just excited to share that with my channel in here.
Totally. And
And
I'd even argue, by the way, it's probably more important to avoid projects that have almost no activity than it is to just invest in the projects that have the most of them, if that makes sense. So it's more important to avoid the ones that have stagnant or almost minimal evidence of the project being worked on compared to like going with the ones that just have the most raw frequency of daily GitHub submissions, if that makes sense.
can you elaborate on that? Like, I understand what you mean by no. Like,
Yeah.
so you're saying like just if they don't have much development activity, just statistics state your probability is better to just avoid them entirely and not
Yeah.
and not roll the dice.
You have a higher risk of getting screwed over in an investment if the project has almost no activity compared to the reward of simply just putting a strategy together with investing in those that have the highest number. Because the numbers can still mean anything. It doesn't necessarily measure quality. We still filter out like the redundant stuff. So there is value to this top 10, top 20 list that we have. But more importantly, it works as a justifier for when you look at your portfolio and you're seeing that the assets that you're investing your hard-earned money in are being actively uh, improved and innovated by respective teams.
Right. And I tend to agree. Where would you draw that line? Where would you cut it off and say that there's not any activity? Like, where does that, do you have a development activity
Yeah,
score where you draw that line, or do you have a particular thing that you say, look, this thing's dying?
yeah, I'd say, I mean, if you're seeing less than one submission per day, even if it's like a bunch of zeros and then maybe there's a spike of 10 uh, once or twice a month, like that's still kind of a red flag. I like to see consistent double digit numbers myself, 10, 20, 15, 13, like on a daily basis. That's a pretty good sign that the team is active on a daily basis instead of just, once a week they'll do a little bit of admin work and call it a day.
Is that what the development activity score is? Is that like if it was a 10, or is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, in terms of the actual notable submissions per day, according to our algorithm that looks at development.
okay, cool. And outside of this page, then we can move on. The DAA 30 days, right? That's a daily active addresses 30 days. Is there any value in looking at that?
Yeah, yeah. So we love looking at utility metrics like daily active addresses. That's here in orange that I'm highlighting. This essentially measures the amount of unique addresses that are interacting on the network on a daily basis. Higher is obviously better. There's exceptions, like if you're looking at a smaller asset, obviously Bitcoin is not. But looking at like an obscure like top 500 altcoin that may have very little daily active addresses, and then suddenly the price explodes, and then you see this huge spike in active addresses on one isolated day. That's actually often the sign of a lot of profit taking, which is a red flag. But on the long term, when you're looking at unique addresses rising over time, it's implying that the project is becoming more populated with regularly occurring circulation, which is one of the primary pillars of why prices rise over time.
Okay. I noticed some of them had no data, right? Does that mean anything, or just mean? I think you told me it means it's untrackable. If you could
Yeah,
elaborate, because
so
it's people are going
it's
to
good
ask
to
that.
definitely good to clarify. So most of our projects that we have full data on, like this particular on-chain metric, are related to ERC20s, Ethereum-based tokens. But we also have the big boys like Bitcoin, XRP, Cardano, Bitcoin Cash, Binance Coin, and a few others. But if you're looking at like an obscure, like the 211th market cap asset, and it's on a non-ERC20 blockchain, we'll have more limited data, such as like social data and development activity, but we won't have stuff like daily active addresses.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question about that list, and then I'm going to give you the reins for like 5 minutes to like show whatever you want to show on here.
You bet.
Um, with let's say Can you pull that list back up? The screener.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Can you scroll down a little bit if you don't mind? Right there, Vega, number 13. So I've seen that thing bouncing around. I've never heard of that thing in my life. I see it has 112 active addresses. I'm not here to poo poo on that. I've just never heard of it. But I also noticed it was like number 6 like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, man, how did this thing get its way up here? Would you be mindful of stuff like that? Like, if there's like maybe not much social talk about it and it's something dropping down a list. And again, I'm bringing up that example of EOS, right? It just rapidly fell down a list of developer abandonment over time. Have you noticed that too? Like if stuff is falling on this list, tracking it, that how would you monitor that? I don't know. I guess that's kind of what I'm
Sure.
going at. Like, because like we can look at the list, but it seems like something you would have to be checking on. You probably want to check on it once a week, right? Maybe once every 2 weeks, just to be
Yeah.
like, what's going on here? And if something has fallen, then what?
Yeah, I'd say that's about the frequency in which we really check on this list and look into what the big risers and big fallers are. And I'd be honest and say there is not really a big deal if you're dropping from number 6 to number 13 in the span of 2 weeks, because what this is essentially measuring is just the 30-day running tally of what the development activity numbers look like. And in any given month, you might have a time where a project is super active, and then they take a little breather and they're focusing on something more internal that doesn't reflect in their GitHub. And perhaps that's what's going on with Vega, where maybe they did something close to 400 notable GitHub submissions 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then they did more like 150 in the last week or two, and it kind of averaged out to what's showing right here at around 245. It just means it's going to go down the list, but you're still talking about the 13th largest developed project over the past 30 days. And unless it's going from like number 6 to suddenly like number 70 or something,
Okay.
it means that the project is still being worked on plenty. And I wouldn't worry too much about a few slots going up or down in a short period of time.
Okay. Cool. I think we've covered the screen. This is free for anybody, right? They can just go to
Oh, yeah.
santiment.net. You want to walk them through that process? Just go to santiment.net and then how they can find that for free.
Yeah, of course. So you can just go to app.santiment.net in particular. So this is our main send-based platform. If you want to open a trial, you can just do app.santiment.net/pricing, and you'll see our tiers here. And you can basically just make an account and start your journey on exploring anything you want. You get a week trial by default where you'll get all the metrics for free. If you are just on a free plan after that, you'll get a delay in real-time data, but you still have total access to like our screener, like I just showed here, a lot of our social metrics, which I can get into in a moment, where you can see like the top 10 trending keywords in crypto, as well as trending tokens. If you'd like to just isolate the projects that are getting the most, buzz and various mentions on social platforms. And there's a lot you can look up here on the social trends page. So as you and I were discussing right before we started this call, we just had major news break with CZ Binance stepping down, having a settlement agreement north of just above $4 billion. There might be criminal charges coming his way. And obviously, this is going to have a big impact on the markets. And you can see here the social volume in teal/light blue, whatever you want to call that color. And then social dominance is actually the percentage of discussions related to a subject compared to all the other subjects that are firing off every minute on social platforms. So basically, there's a massive social dominance spike, as you would expect with this news breaking. It's probably only going to get bigger as more of the mainstream discovers it. And you can often see big correlations with where markets go compared to a sudden subject that the mainstream media is starting to circulate and traders are reacting to it. I won't even show them, but there's things like buy the dip where you'll see whenever that type of mention goes on. Obviously, it usually happens when a dip happens.
You can show it if
And
you want, man. It's cool.
okay, yeah, so I'll show you this. Typically, when we're looking at mentions of buy the dip, if you see a big spike after a dip happens, it will lead to the market's either continuing to dip or getting stagnant. And then when people stop being interested in quote unquote buying the dip, that is when the dips actually happen. Because as we mentioned, markets tend to move the opposite direction of the crowd's expectations. So if if it's unanimous that this is time to buy the dip, it's not yet time to buy the dip. You got to remember that this is a zero sum game, just like any other sector, and there's an equal amount of profits and losses. So if everyone says it's time to make some profits, only a small percentage of them are actually going to time it correctly. And that's the kind of stuff that we really love on the social trends side of things, because you can look at just all sorts of like euphoric types of subjects and see how markets fall after those subjects spike. And then when people get super fearful, take Black Thursday back in March of 2020, for example, biggest retrace we've seen, I think, since Mount Gox. And everybody was saying, oh, this might be the end of crypto. Like, I don't know what's going to happen now. It turned out to be the best buy opportunity we've seen for most, modern traders out there. And that's kind of what we look for, is the overly fearful or overly euphoric types of subjects, and then awaiting the likely opposite outcome depending on what the crowd is feeling at any given moment.
Can you show me that one? And then we'll probably have to start getting close to wrapping this thing up. Can you show me that one where we're looking at a chart like this and it was some social thing and we saw it really plummet down? It was like a big opportunity once that August 16th liquidation happened, how sentiment was really positive and then it flipped right back down into the gutter.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can look at kind of the fluctuations between when the crowd gets super euphoric and when they get super fearful, and kind of see a lot of uh, counter trading opportunities when that happens. A good example would be, the aforementioned Black Thursday event, which happened here in mid March. This was the most fearful we got, other than uh, recently here in June. But back here, we saw Bitcoin's price drop, I think, just about 50%, give or take a few percentage points, and then started to go on this massive surge where you see that there was still some doubt right here toward right before things really blasted off. And then all of a sudden you start to see big green candles where people become euphoric. More doubt here as prices continue to rise. And then they get euphoric, thinking that this is time to buy the dip, which of course it wasn't yet. Prices kept going down when everyone was trying to buy the dip here. And then eventually they gave up right here in June of 2021. And once they gave up, oh, look at that. It's time for another big market rise. And everyone gets euphoric again. And when they get euphoric, we fall. So on and so forth until we get to, early June here. This was right before ETFs were announced. So naturally, we had a big boost from that. That was kind of unpredictable. And then look, as we recently rose, just in the past month, people were actually quite negative. They didn't believe that this rise was real. They thought it was kind of a bull trap for a while. And eventually, they stopped being so negative because prices had risen so much. And we're now slightly positive once again. And we're starting to see a red candle. Doesn't mean it'll continue, but this is kind of a reflection of why we believe so strongly that markets move in the opposite direction of the crowd's expectation. There's just, especially in extreme situations like Black Thursday or like the all-time highs back in October and November of 2021, that's where we see reversals like clear as day so often. And it's a great way to predict markets.
Yeah, I always like to say the market issue likes to, dish out max pain, and
Yep.
whether that's from price just being stalled out or price falling or jealousy, capitulation, whatever it is. But it's cool to see it like quantified. So cool, man. Just because of the amount of time that we've been running for, I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping it up. But I
You bet.
wanted to at least show this to people and let them see that this exists out there, just to be able to get a lot of this. Obviously you have free stuff out there, and of course you have paid stuff. I'm not sponsored by you guys. I don't have affiliate links, nothing like that. If you guys want to check them out, feel free to do it. But I wanted to at least give you the resource and show you these guys, Santiment, and I brought them on there and brought them onto the channel for you guys to check them out. And Brian, man, brother, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for showing us around here. And I guess the way to summarize Santiment is that you do on-chain analysis, and with that, you're able to give us kind of a report on a lot of the altcoins out there, including Bitcoin too. what the development activity looks like for them, and then give us a clue into sentiment and how price reacts to sentiment. And you have measurable statistics and stuff to see what sentiment is up to today.
Yeah, that's a great summary. And I'll say this, like TA traders out there, I think a lot of the best traders I've seen use a healthy mix of these kinds of metrics as well as TA at the same time. Like you can't disregard support levels, resistance levels, and the RSI, all sorts of indicators that maybe much of your community is more familiar with. But when you combine it with some objective data and you can see, tangibly, this is what the crowd thinks, it just supplements more information that you can use at your disposal. So, yeah, I definitely, regardless of me being part of Santiment, I would be using this tool all the time. And I think there's a lot of benefit to it. And we'd love to give some more updates on how the markets are fluctuating during this crazy time, especially with CZ stepping down here.
I'll ask the audience what they think. If they want you to come back on, man, and share some stuff that's going on with the ever changing market, I'd like to invite you back on to chat about it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Brian, brother, thank you, man. Take care.
Pleasure. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
All right, so there you go. That's it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed that interview. There's my shot at trying to conduct an interview. I really wanted to show you how you can access all of this data because I've obviously been doing a ton of research on altcoins to try to figure out what would be those things that would have improved results in 2021 versus 2017. This was certainly one of those things that showed a measurable difference in performance. And I'm not just talking like, you would have hit one grand slam here like Solana in 2021, and that would have been your big thing. On average, not only just like the average returns, but even the median returns on those were better. Of course, we're still waiting for this current market to tell us what's going to end up happening here with the whole stock market stuff. And, Bitcoin's back in, that 38K range. So there's no guarantees of anything. But if we wanted to go back and say, how did this market change in 2021 versus 2017? This was definitely some of the stuff that was taken into consideration and had a measurable difference on the performance of a portfolio. So I wanted to show that to you because I've obviously been talking about it all year. It's the thing I was going to figure out in 2023. I went to Consensus earlier this year to try to get more information and figure out what's going on in this market. That's where I got my hands on some development activity. And then ever since then, that's been like the thing I've been focusing on because I definitely noticed some changes there. So check this out if you want to. It's totally free over here, santiment.net. You can access this screener. And then, of course, if you want to really dive into like super mega data, they have paid plans on there and whatnot, which I even pay for it myself over here. I've got a pro membership. So we'll go ahead and go through the wrap up of this thing. If you want to see some of the analysis I have done on this to see that data and show you how those numbers have fluctuated, you could check out the last 2 newsletters that I've put out here. You could check out blockchainbacker.substack.com. There's a link in the description of this video to the newsletter. This is subscription based. Also over here on bcbacker.com, where I have over 40 videos, over 11 hours of content. Down in here, there is actually videos where I even talk about developer growth, developer decline, and run simulations and case studies as well on the 2017 versus 2021 stuff, using that data as well. And there's just no question. This stuff was important. It also seems there was some importance in regards to the percentage drawdown as well in determining whether or not an altcoin could return back to its all-time highs. But in the end, there's like no question this stuff was something that had a drastically different result than just going shopping through the top 20 or the top 30 on CoinMarketCap by the largest market cap coins. This was not an accurate representation of what was being worked on and what investors were actually interested in. It's like this market does a really crummy job pricing things up in here in the top, and that research is best done in lists like this. So check it out if you want, santiment.net. Check out my newsletter over there, blockchainbacker.substack.com. And of course, check out bcbacker.com for 40 videos and 11 hours of content delivered by me in the same manner as my YouTube channel. Also, a link to bcbacker.com in the description of this video. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed this, please comment below. Maybe we'll bring them back on. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, Just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.